Today's talk will be a review of ACL's biomechanics from then to now. Despite recent advances, ACL reconstructions still fail, so we need to understand the biomechanics better. And when we reconstruct an ACL, we don't only reconstruct the ligament, but we reconstruct the knee kinematics. And most of the times, it is a biomechanical failure rather than graft-related problems. And we know there are two types of stability that the ACL has to give, the anteroposterior and the rotational, and ACL being the primary anterior tibial translation restraint ruptures, and this leads to loss of knee kinematics because the secondary stabilizers fail, and this leads to OA. To prevent all this, we have to understand the biomechanics of ACL better. So the contents of this lecture will be a brief note on the kinematics of ACL, its anatomy, the core biomechanical concepts, and anatomical considerations which predispose to ACL failure, and we move on to current concepts. The ACL lives inside the knee, and the knee has a combination of rolling and gliding movement. Rolling happens more towards the extension, and gliding happens more in flexion. The medial and lateral compartment geometrically are different. One is concave and the other is convex. This has the screw home pattern, and there is external tibial rotation in extension and internal rotation in flexion. The stability of the knee under load not only requires ACL, but requires other restraints like the menisci, capsule, muscles and ligaments. Of all these, the most important stabilizer, the primary stabilizer, is of course the ACL. It provides more than 80% of stability of anterior restraining force between 30 to 90 degrees of flexion, and the greatest amount of anterior tibial translation happens in 20 to 45 degrees of flexion. Beyond 90, usually the MCL takes over. The ACL also restrains internal rotation during anterior tibial translation and gives rotational stability. From Freddy Fu, we know that there are two distinct bundles. The ACL fiber groups thicken and slacken during the range of movement, and hence functionally and anatomically they were classified into the anteromedial and posterolateral bundles. The bundles are named after their tibial insertion sites. The anteromedial bundle, which is bigger, tensions between 45 and 60 degrees of flexion and remains relatively taut throughout the entire range of movement. The PL bundle tightens in full extension and loosens in knee flexion. The AM bundle primarily resists anterior tibial translation, and the PL bundle provides rotational stability and assists in controlling anterior translation at lower flexion angles. Now these are some of the cadaver dissections that was done in Sri Ramachandra Bioskills lab, and we can see the two bundles, and we were very happy to understand how the ACL works in flexion and extension. But time passed, and we wanted to understand biomechanics more. Going into biomechanics, there are two factors which are fundamental factors for ACL biomechanics. One is the geometry of the ligament itself, and the second is the material property of the tissue. The length and the orientation of fibers predominantly take care of the geometry of the ligament. The collagen composition and the behavior of the ligament-bone interface takes care of the material properties of the tissue. Together, they resist load, elongation and failure. To understand the core biomechanical concept, we have to understand the load elongation behavior. This curve has four parts. The first part is the toe region, which occurs in low loads of movement. The collagen fibers are crimped and gradually straightened. This is physiological laxity of all knees. This explains why there is minimal anterior translation with normal knees. This is necessary for regular movement of the knee. When the toe region is excessive, there is excessive loss of toe region leads to stiffness, and excessive elongation of the toe region leads to laxity. The second part of the curve is called the linear or elastic region. The fibers are fully straight. There is reversible elastic deformation of the ligaments in load, and normal ACL stiffness is around 242 newtons. This slope is when you do your day-to-day activities like walking, running, and playing. And ACL reconstruction should aim to reproduce this stiffness. The third is called the yield point. This curve from elastic reversible translation, the deformation, there is plastic irreversible deformation in the yield point of the fibers of ACL. This leads to micro failure of the collagen, and repeated loading in the yield phase will lead to elongation of the graft. The complete failure, the ultimate failure, happens at 2160 newtons in young adults, and there is complete macro rupture of the ligament in this phase. The failure can occur in mid-substance or ligament-bone interface in native ACLs, and in early post-operative period, the failure always happens in the fixation site. Now, there are some biomechanical anatomical factors which lead to early rupture. This is a study by none other than Professor Mendes, published in ISOCOS in 2016. This shows that there are few important anatomical considerations. Most important is the intercondylar notch width. The ACL injured patients significantly have a lower intercondylar notch width. The second is the NWI, or the notch width index, and significantly lower notch width index is a reason for failure of ACL. These two are either read in the MRIs or in the Rosenberg view or the tunnel view, in which there is a PA projection in 45 degrees of knee flexion in weight bearing. Less than 1/4 of the notch width is a predisposing factor for early ACL failures. And we all know the tibial slope, and tibial slope is also a very important factor that increases ACL primary failure. Women have narrow intercondylar notch, small notch width, and smaller femoral condyles, so they have a higher incidence of ACL failures. The other anatomical factors are stenotic notch, A-shaped, thick bony ridges in the intercondylar notch, and shallow medial tibial plateau, which all leads to early ACL failure. Then came Smigelski's study. They were done in 111 fresh frozen cadavers, and he said ACL is flat and ribbon shaped in the center, and there is no separation between the AM and AL bundles anatomically. The femoral insertion, according to him, inserts just posterior to the lateral intercondylar ridge and in direct continuity with the posterior femoral cortex. So this is the direct fibers, and the indirect fibers are fan-shaped extensions towards the posterior condyle, according to Smigelski's paper. So macroscopically, ACL is a continuum of vesicles, and the bundle appears often resulting from twisting of the ribbon during flexion. So these are more of functional descriptions and not truly anatomical separations, according to him. So the surgical implications of this paper challenged the concept of recreating ACL with a single round graft because it is flat. Hence the need to reconstruct ACL more with ribbon-shaped flat structures like the BTB or the quadriceps tendon came into vogue. The femoral tunnel should ideally be placed in the direct insertion zone where the restoration of load-bearing fibers are inserted. The newer paper in 2023 by Andy Williams and Boak showed that anatomical ACL reconstruction is an overused term because the insertion sites are 3.5 times wider than the mid-substance, and no ACL is truly anatomical. So we know that too high an anterior femoral tunnel will give poor rotational control, too low and posterior tunnel will give a non-isometric graft. So the authors preferred a femoral position is more towards the isometric point in the AM bundle, and for rotational stability, one can always add an LET. The native tibial tunnel, the native ACL in the tibia is C-shaped and cannot be recreated by any tunnel. So the ideal tunnel, according to this paper, is to be at around 40 degrees from the anterior tibial plateau, which can avoid anterior impingement, at the same time provide translational and rotational stability. As we understand more of ACL biomechanics, we are somewhere after the valley of despair today, and with time we will understand it better. Thank you.